Hello and welcome to part 2 of my 2-part Draculara series where I'll be customizing both the old version and the new version of the Draculara doll. In the previous video I customized the new Welcome to Monster High Draculara doll that was, I believe it was released last year in 2016. And in this video I'm doing the same face up on the classic version of Draculara. I started out by adding about 2 or 3 coats of Mr. Super Clear flat UV cut and letting it dry in between. And sometimes I start out by adding the white to the eyes and then do an outline of either in black or brown. And I typically use Derwent watercolor pencils. You'll also see me using Faber Castell watercolor pencils, which are really good for the fine points of the doll, or of the face up, because it keeps a really sharp point compared to the Derwent. The Derwent just, it lays down color a lot nicer. You'll notice if you compare the two that it's a lot easier to get full color on the doll with the Derwent. You can use both to get the color, but the Faber Castell tends to take a few more coats, layers to get solid color. So here I'm really just doing the outline, and then I'll start to use a pink for the tear duct and waterline. Even with these small areas, these small details, I'll use multiple colors. So I will do a pink waterline, but I'll also shade that teeny tiny water line and tear duct with some darker and lighter colors. So here I'm using soft pastel. I'll use Rembrandt or Schminke, which are really good versions of soft pastel. You can use the harder versions, which are the less expensive versions of soft pastels, and you can kind of rub it on a piece of sandpaper, and that will give you some good residue to pick up with the paintbrush. And for these paintbrushes, I use really small paintbrushes, and then I tend to just chop them off, so it's kind of like a stipple brush, and it works really well to, like, as a shading brush for the small areas. Here I'm using a Caran d'Ache watercolor pencil. I think it's called a Super Color, and they work okay. They're just, it takes a couple of layers. They're an excellent company, excellent watercolor pencil, but for the doll customizing, it's a little bit difficult to get the color to layer on there. Watercolors aren't typically used for this. They're produced to make watercolor paintings for the most part. It would be nice, I guess, if they started marketing a brand specifically for this, huh? there I was using a Prismacolor eraser, and it's a really good eraser because you can actually sharpen it to get to a really fine point to get into those areas. I have another video of my supplies, the supplies that I typically use, so check that out if you're interested in more detail on the supplies I'm using in this video. Again, more layers of that blue. I really wanted that blue color, but I had to lay it down and then spray it with sealer and put more color down. As you can see, it's starting to show up a little bit better. And again, layering in more white. I'd probably do 5, 6, 7, maybe even more coats of white, just so that white really pops, because it'll go on pretty dark at first, and then I'll notice after the sealer that it kind of settles in and I need to put another coat on because it kind of fades. So you've got to do a lot of layers of the color to build up a good solid color. The turban on the doll is I use medical tape, and well, first I'll wrap it in a paper towel, and then I'll go around the paper towel with the medical tape so it'll stay tight to her head. It's so tall because I have a reroot done, and it's a lot of hair, so I have it wrapped up. But it's the medical tape, I get that at the Dollar Tree. I reserve a paintbrush specifically for wiping away like eraser shavings and things like that, because I want to keep it nice and clean, so I use that specifically for that. And I actually use just kind of a regular, like a household paintbrush rather than a painting paintbrush or an artist paintbrush. It's got soft bristles, but it just works really well. I'm adding some highlights here. So this video, I believe, is about 15 to 18 minutes long, and the actual time it took me to paint this face-up was probably like 3 hours, believe it or not. But I'm slow, and I just tend to like to take my time and build a lot of layers, and I just enjoy painting, so I just take my time with it. kind of abandoned the Caran pencil and started using a darker Faber Castell and then a Derwent. But that was fine. It was more for shadowing and shading. You can still see some of the Caran. It just, I mean, layer after layer after layer, it still wasn't building up as much color as I wanted to. So then I just started adding the darker colors with the other pencils. Eyebrows are my worst. I still haven't really mastered the techniques that to do eyebrows. They never turn out the way I want to. Actually, since this video, I did a couple where I made the eyebrows a little bit larger, like thicker, and I liked them a lot better. So I think that was kind of my problem. I just was making them too thin. So just a tip there, if you're a face-up artist and are struggling with eyebrows, maybe make them a little thicker. It helped me. There I'm using a metallic, that was a Derwent metallic water-soluble pencil, and I'll use that on the very last layer because it's more like an Inktense, which is not a watercolor pencil. It's more like ink in a pencil form, and it doesn't layer very well. So if I use it, it's one of the last things that I do, because things just don't layer well on top of it. But they really add a neat metallic look. And so I did her eyebrows a little bit silver. Kind of struggled with what color to do them since her hair is pink and her face is pink. I didn't want to make them like a hot pink or something, so I did them a little bit grayish pink. So just a couple more minutes on this video. I hope these tips were helpful. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. If you have, want more information, like I mentioned earlier, on the tools that I use, I have a supply video, but feel free to also ask questions about the supplies. Like, subscribe, or hey, give it a thumbs down if you don't like this video and you don't like the tips that I'm giving during the face-up, and if you just want to watch. Feedback is welcome. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.